Hi everyone, welcome to this short recording of how to create a very simple but very efficient forecasting file. This is the end result. You get a chart that shows you the actual in blue, then the forecast in orange, and then an upper bound and lower bound, which basically you can decide how you want to create them. But it's a very nice chart that shows you the information, some slicers, and a timeline, so you can decide which of the data you want to forecast. And here on the bottom is where you can actually change the forecast. So what I have set up here in this table is to show you the last month of the data plus one. So in our case, the actual ends in May. And I've created a 4-month rolling forecast. This gives you a statistical forecast based on an Excel formula. And I've added 2 lines just to get you to think what are the possibilities. You can change the number in percentages or in total. So it's very simple formulas, but I can just change it, and eventually I get a final forecast. And when I do this, the chart automatically changes. So if I spike this one by 4,000, you see it automatically. This is very helpful when you want to change the forecasts. The confidence value here changes the upper bound and lower bound, but of course this is very user-based. The timeline, the chart, the timeline, and the 2 slicers are connected to a pivot table, of course. So maybe I just want to see 2018 and build the forecast. Maybe just 19, maybe 2 years. Maybe I want to look into a quarterly bucket, like show me just the last, I don't know, X amount of quarters, and of course specific months. So it's very you can customize it as you want, as you wish, and you can also define what are you forecasting, a certain product, maybe a customer, maybe a family of products. And when you change these buttons, you get a different result. So like bed for customer A is going to be different than chair, than closet, etc., etc. Maybe you just want to forecast the customer. Doesn't matter what the product is. That's also sometimes an option. So you can do that. The idea is that you can build whatever hierarchy you want, and you can play with whatever you want to forecast. Let's take a look at how it's done. So here I set up some mock data. I have the customer, I have the product. This is basically your hierarchy. So this could be 10 columns, 5 columns, 3 columns, whatever you want. Probably best that you have some sort of hierarchy that makes sense. So sometimes a product could have like a product family. So maybe you'd have like apple and orange, which are fruit. And maybe you want to forecast fruit and not apple and orange. This is very common if you have implications for your forecast, maybe for raw material planning, where sometimes the end product is not as important as the semi or the group. Then you have the date, which is a must, and it must be an Excel date, or recommend that you do. If it's not an Excel date, there's always an option to manipulate the data, and I have a video about that, so you could check that video too on my channel on how to manipulate data of dates. Quantity, of course, that's a must. And what I did here, I added a column called first date. I just built the dates I built this whole table, simulation data, and I just made it as a weekly input. You see I'm adding 7 to every value. And usually when you want to forecast, at least in my experience, you're looking at a monthly bucket. And to do that, I added this very simple formula that, just a second, very simple formula that looks at the date, year, month, and gives it a 1, so it all gives us the same date, which is the first of the month. Here's where I just built the information for the quantity. If you're interested, I just use the round between. Instead of having two constant values, I use two VLOOKUPs to have different values. I just wanted some some flexibility and some different values between the different products. And as you can see, I'm simulating some sort of department store or wood shop or something, furniture based business. So I just used that so this data would be a little bit more interesting and not manually input in. So you can use round between two numbers and just a dynamic list with min and max per product. This is just for you. Maybe this also helps you just a bit. Here in sheet number 2, basically I can call it like a pivot, something like that. Here's where the quote unquote magic happens. So this is the pivot table, very simple pivot table. You got the first date, that column that we added as the row, and the value is just the sum of quantity. That's it. Nothing else. And all the slicers impact this. This is the table that builds the chart. So this is what's building this chart. It's connected here. So the slicers in the timeline impact the data, and the chart you'd see is pulling information from here. So the first month is going to be the minimum, and the actual is just going to be the actual, the quantity. Now the forecast, here I'm looking for this value if I have it over here, and if not, I want to show the actual. Why? Because in the charts here, if I don't, then the forecast will have another line, maybe 0 or something. I just want it to flow very nicely. So you go from actual to forecast, and you have like a changeover in the last month, which is very clear. So lower bound and upper bound is based on this column. So you have a lower bound and upper bound. Let's go to forecast. Let's go to the CI, or the confidence indicator. So I'm using an Excel-based function called forecast ETS confident. And you can see I'm looking for the values that it needs to be to work is the date, the values, the timeline, the confidence level, which is the percentage I used before, and you can also use seasonality, etc. And if you leave it empty, or we can look at it this way, if you leave it empty, then it's just the default, which is automatic, or all of these. Okay, so this is just something I picked up. It doesn't mean that it's very accurate. You could use like an average here and have an upper and lower bound based on running average. A lot of options. It's just sort of an indicator. And I use the filter because basically I wanted this indicator only to appear here where there's forecast. So basically I have a very simple if I have a forecast and not an actual, which gives me just these lines. And for those lines, I want to pull the confidence formula. So, and the last thing is the date. You can see that at a certain point I'm not showing a date. That's because I want the chart. I don't want the chart to show dates all through whatever. And I have to have more lines here. So if you have more dates, it's just easier fix. You can always drag the formula down and update the chart, and that will also do the trick. Okay. So we covered the pivot, and we covered the formulas for the chart. We covered how you set up the data. You don't need this. I mean, hopefully you have this already, which is your data. And we talked about the slicers, so you can select a certain item, customer, whatever you want, whatever your hierarchy is. And What I like nice about looking at the chart, you could look at it and examine if you have outliers. And for example, you could look at this value and maybe you'd say, oh, I want to ignore that value, and you can go and fix the data or increase. Sometimes you may look at, like, if this is the entire company, so your statistical forecast is 4.6, but maybe sales is targeting another 10% all around. Okay. Sorry, 10%, 1,000%. So, or 30% here and minus 10% here. So just to give it a little wiggle. So, this is really going to be helpful for you if you looking at the chart, seeing how it immediately impacts. And what's nice about the formulas here is you can actually drag and increase. So if I drag it, you see I get October, November, December, different values, and automatically the chart extends. So since they're all connected, as you see here, this value is depending on the demand plan, this area. So this is a very nice option to give you a lot of flexibility without changing a lot of things. So just to summarize, what you need to get this working: an Excel that can use pivot tables and pivot charts, and that's about it. Get your data set, get your hierarchy set, get a date in Excel and the quantity, and combine it to a monthly bucket if you need. If you want to forecast daily or something else, that's also an option. Make sure the pivot is updated and these formulas are working for you, and you're good to go. All you need to do is find out what kind of changes you want to make and get that final forecast. Now, this, of course, is just a very simple module. With a little bit of coding and VBA, you can really turn this into something much more powerful in automation, and you could really design like a file that you'd have all your portfolio, and you could go one by one and update and see your total forecast. But even if you just want something kind of basic, you want to forecast the closets or the chairs, and this is your forecast, you can take that, copy it, put it somewhere and just use it further down the road. And at least you got some sort of forecast that's based on, historical data. So if you want me to share this file with you, just leave a comment in the comment sections below. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please like, please share, please subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you again. Bye-bye.